All of this is a lot, but to help us understand some of this information and how it affects food prices, consumers buying and so forth, we will be inviting Rajiv Diptee, President of the Trinidad and Tobago Supermarket Association, to share some insight with us as it relates to these issues and even how he sees it and his membership, that's the membership of the Trinidad and Tobago Supermarket Association, how they are grappling with things as it faces inclement weather, price shocks and so forth. So we would be having Rajiv Diptee. So we do have Rajiv joining us here via phone call. Rajiv, good morning and welcome to AM Prime.
Good morning to the AM Prime team. Good morning, Trinidad and Tobago.
Now, we see this information coming out from the Central Bank of Trinidad and Tobago, but to be quite frank, the average person doesn't understand it, nor do they care to understand it. What they want to know is, okay, what are the actual effects, the going to the grocery and so forth, because we're hearing inflation going down, but at the same time, we also have some other price shocks that are happening, such as inclement weather, we have the war in Ukraine and so on. What are the important things for buyers, consumers to understand as it relates to food prices that may one week go up and then the other week go down?
I think you've described the situation very well. I think that when we consider the situation that Trinidad and Tobago finds itself in as an import-dependent nation that has to really depend on global market prices, commodity market prices internationally, and how that is being affected by the phenomenon you've described, especially when you consider that, yes, the post-COVID price stimulus, price hikes that period is behind us, and we are looking at almost a period of stagflation where you've seen price increases almost stagnate, but there are price shocks that are happening. And I think one of them right now, when you consider the inclement weather and the El Nino effects that are causing these shocks to commodity markets, when you look at certain commodities, be it coffee, wheat, cocoa, and so forth, and how that's really going to continue to affect you. Also have the traditional challenges, including various supply chain. Yes, freight has leveled out. There are still some transshipment issues that local importers of food have identified as continuing issues. And that being said, most of our products in Trinidad and Tobago come from the North American market. Now, that market has continued to feel some effects, in particular with labor and energy costs being something that are still identified by local importers as issues. When you think about inclement weather and how that's going on, you've seen that it's going to affect some markets in particular, and it's something that we're talking to local importers about. When we think about some of the prices that we're getting right now, we're not seeing the price increases the way that it came in the same period when you measure it against 2022 to 2023. You've actually seen some price decreases in a couple of items, but then you've seen some price increases in items such as cheese and other cottage industry products. And there are a number of reasons for that, but it's a situation that is getting better, but it's experiencing a lot of shocks at the moment.
You would have mentioned, obviously, Trinidad and Tobago being very dependent on the importation of food. A lot of our products on our shelves we see coming from outside of this country. And quite often we hear persons calling on the government, for instance, to invest more heavily in agriculture. What is the country doing to diversify? Why are we not looking at agriculture in a serious way and so forth? But my question to you in terms of being able to lead this private sector group of supermarkets, what are the supermarkets and your association and so on putting in place or even suggesting to make it a lot more attractive for persons to enter agriculture, knowing proudly that their products would be on the nation's shelves and knowing that viability exists?
I love how you put that question together, because food security is definitely at the top of the agenda, particularly when we at the store level of stores talk about it. It's something that is a good question, because, as I pointed out, we're an import-dependent nation that's very much dependent on global market prices. At the level of stores, what we have done, and I think that this is something the public has been very aware of for some time, we have placed food security at the top of our agenda. We have put together the Caribbean Food and Beverage Trade Event. It's happening next week, Wednesday to Saturday, at Center of Excellence. And it's a forum for a lot of cottage processors, a lot of micro and medium processors. And it's something that we're hoping can add to the food security discussion. It's something that we've identified that there's a need for local alternatives. There's a need to identify import substitution, and there's a need to create awareness, particularly for production in the country. From the side of agriculture, there's a lot more that can be done. There have been traditional issues that have been identified, predial larceny, land tenure, and so on, that really falls at the doorstep of the Ministry of Agriculture, Land and Fisheries, and they are working on those issues from what we understand. However, when when you think about the global factors that mitigate this in Trinidad and Tobago crime, chief among them, it's going to always be a red herring in the room. But certainly we've had different conversations about agriculture. We continue to work closely with partners in the sector, such as NAMDEVCO, to see what kind of arrangements could be put in place to encourage local production. And that is a different conversation altogether, from the side of quality, consistency, reliability, and the quantities of production to satisfy local consumers. Because at the end of this conversation, local consumers are the one that dictate consumer trends. They're the one that indicate to us what it is we have to prioritize. And it's something that we remain very cognizant of.
And speaking of just that, because I know past and possibly present governments of Trinidad and Tobago have done some campaigns, have embarked on some initiatives of buy local. That's a term that we've heard over the years. But from where you sit and from where the members of your association sit, do you believe that the population may very well, going under that buy local campaign, or really having an appreciation for local products and so forth, would be willing to pay for products, whether they are a bit over the international products coming in those prices and so forth? Because I really have to think about, economies and of scale. Trinidad and Tobago may not be able to manufacture at the same pace or the same rate as some of these other developed countries or even developing countries. But we've used that buy local campaign really to get people to look beyond, I think, some of those higher prices and stuff. Do you think that the population is receptive to that when you look at the products that sit on your shelves or the ones that move quickly?
Excellent question. And to be quite frank with you, in our sector, the consumer is king. And that's something that we always recognize with respect to buy local campaigns, and there have been many over the years. I think you put the big points in focus. And the big points really is pricing, the quality, because the consumers do dictate the trends. They do indicate that they are looking for a certain profile of product. They have been spoiled over time with their preferences from the imported stuff that we've continued to put out across the decades. And their preferences means now that the local products have to have a certain profile in terms of marketing, in terms of quality, in terms of the consistency, the economies of scale. All of these things have certain factors that build into the equation, because for any local product to remain viable and sustainable, it has to really take off in a kind of way that allows for its growth to displace product in the market. if it's going to be displacing product, that means that it's going to take some kind of investment to really, get up to a level that is acceptable to enter and stay and compete in the market. We've only seen a few products really do that. A good example would be Berry Cove in Tobago. They've gotten off for the strawberries, the raspberries, and those family of berries, and they're doing that in the market. But it takes some work, and we have local entities such as Kariri, NAMDEFCO, Invest TT, Export TT that really work with micro and medium processors to get these products up to the level that we look at and that we demand. And it's something that is going to be gradual, because as long as the imported products, as you correctly pointed out, are more accessible to customers, we're going to find that customers are the ones that will continue to make the purchases.
Understood. And I want to jump back because really those are shining examples, or what you mentioned is a shining example. Not everyone may have the resources and stuff to take on a project as big as that, but we have a lot of these cottage industries, a lot of these persons who are within their home kitchen, who are really experimenting and coming forward with good products, but it's a matter of
scaling. And you're going to see them next week at the Caribbean Food and Beverage Expo. I want to make it clear we created that forum specifically for these cottage producers. Yes,
and that's what I want to jump at, to get a bit more information for our viewers about the Caribbean Food and Beverage Expo. The genesis of it is very important. I see here the meeting point.
And I'm glad you're asking, because if anyone paid attention, we formed the Caribbean Supermarket Association last year. We signed a memorandum of understanding with the CARICOM private sector organization. The focus on food security, the focus on divesting trade channels across the Caribbean. Because when we consider food security, we don't consider it only from the perspective of Trinidad and Tobago. We know that as a region, the Caribbean has to lean on each other. There are lots of different production opportunities and activities taking place in the Caribbean basin right now between players such as Guyana, St. Lucia, Jamaica, Barbados, etc. And it's important to coordinate, create, and cultivate trade channels and opportunities. There are actually going to be some buyers coming from Suriname and Guyana. So the show next week is very much an expo. It's very much a conference and a culinary festival. We will be having different activities in the same space. There will be buyers coming from Guyana, Suriname, St. Lucia, confirmed to attend the show. Next week, Wednesday and Thursday are B2B days. And all days, in fact, are open to the public. We'll have a live kitchen. We'll have lots of giveaways. Please check out our social media handles for more information. You can email us, info@satthq.com, and check us out. We have lots of things going on. It's going to be very exciting. We hope to have this as an annual event and something that's going to be creating a space for local production.
Excellent. And with participation such as this, the Caribbean Food and Beverage Expo, with a lot of the other things that may be put in place, whether by the state or private sector, I just want to, in final thoughts, where do you see this sector in, let's say, 10 years, 15 years? Are you optimistic about where our local producers will be, our local manufacturers, and how we fare when compared to the international market?
I think it's important to remain eternally optimistic, perhaps not fatally optimistic, but the reality is that once propped up by the right policy decisions, once propped up by the correct profile of investment, and it's a sector that really needs a lot of attention, a lot of care, a lot of love. It has a lot of potential. But there are factors in Trinidad and Tobago right now that we need to acknowledge are creating major issues, such as the crime. A lot of farmers have issues. They're a very vulnerable class of people. And if you want to encourage agriculture, you need to put things in place to protect them and their livelihoods. You need to put incentives for people to get into that line of work, particularly when it comes to them and ensuring that that they can function adequately in the space when it comes to land, machinery, equipment, market, etc. Where do we see the market in 10 years? It needs to take the next step. It needs a certain level of investment. Mm-hmm. There is a level of farming and production that is heading into the automated space when you consider first world production and first world farming and first world manufacturing. Yes. It's going to take a certain level of that. Now, it's already happening in Trinidad and Tobago, but that level of farming is something that's not indigenous to the traditional profile of farming we've seen. It's going to take some time, but I'm very optimistic, my friend.
Excellent. Well, Rajiv, as usual, it is a pleasure for you to join me here on the program and for us to discuss these issues. And I just want to reiterate to persons, the Caribbean Food and Beverage Expo, a trade show, conference, and culinary show will be taking place from Wednesday, 28th of June to the 1st of July, Sunday, the 1st of July, from 10 a.m. to 7 p.m. And this is taking place at the Center of Excellence, Mokoya. It is considered to be the meeting point for the industry professionals. Once again, Rajiv, thank you so much for joining me this morning.
A real pleasure to be on your show. Have a wonderful day, Trinidad and Tobago. Take care.